Hello, this is Eddie, and this is going to be my report for the political science class. So, thought long and hard about it, so I'm just going to do an in-depth comparison between a fictitious take on our United States government and our actual United States government. So, hopefully it'll be very in-depth and very informative, and I can just use that as a talking point to talk about some of the things that we've talked about in this class. So, let's check it out, shall we? So, this form of media that I am going to be comparing is, it's a visual novel called My Girlfriend is the President. And it's basically the president played by a high school girl named Ohama. Long story short, I'm going to try my best to have an in-depth comparison between the two. Obviously, there's going to be a point at which I'm just going to give up with these comparisons and just call it a day. So hopefully, if you're hearing this, that means that I feel like I've done a pretty good job with comparisons. So, yeah. Wish me luck. Oh, and we're playing as the Vice President. Just thought I'd let you know. Sounds about right. The only two things that the protagonist has to do is serve as the tiebreaker whenever the Senate has the tie, and to take over as the president if Ohama dies. Now, to me, it looks like the amount of workload that the vice president has is dependent on ties in the Senate. Speaking of which, how often are there ties in the Senate? Okay, well, I'm back, and looks like 258 times. That's according to the United States Senate website. That's throughout all of the United States government's history. So, yeah. I mean, given that 52% of the Senate is in the Republican faction, pretty sure Michael Pence doesn't really have a lot. No, it looks like he's been a tiebreaker for 3 times already? Oh, right, the Betsy DeBatry, right. She was so close to not being confirmed for education secretary, and then given Betsy's lack of experience, I mean, wouldn't the appropriate response be no? But, well, as it turns out, Betsy's very open about her support for charter schools, and with Betsy sitting on the education secretary chair, the glass barrier that keeps out the so-called riffraff is the lower and middle class. It just got a whole lot thicker, and I'm talking Brookfield Zoo line thin thicker. So, all that being said, unless Ohama and protagonist can't convince the Fishermen's Union members on whatever that bill is about, this guy's just going to be able to take it easy unless he gets an unexpected promotion, of course. Anyway, back to the comparisons. Menacing 80%. Holy crap. I wonder how our guy's doing. Okay, back. 50%. Although, this will probably be outdated, given that he'll probably say something stupid that'll make his approval rating drop substantially, but 50%? It's really big. Who does these polls? Well, turns out it's this thing called the Rasmussen Report. And who's Rasmussen? Well, according to their website, Rasmussen Reports was founded by Scott Rasmussen. And according to their About Us page, they claim to be independent. Well, there's one thing that I learned from my stats class is that numbers can easily be manipulated. So you can take your 80% approval rating with a grain of salt, and I'll take our 50% approval rating with a pint of bourbon. Okay, so this is Ron. She's the chief of staff in this world. She, like everyone else in this visual novel, does a lot of work. they're pretty much the master of the White House. And when I say the White House, I literally mean the White House. Chief of Staff is pretty much the landlord's. Fun fact, the Chief of Staff doesn't need to be confirmed by the Senate. So why am I even bothering bringing up the Chief of Staff? Well, unlike Ron, who works at a Chinese restaurant, our guy, Rene Priebus, was once a chairman of the Republican National Committee. Now, I ain't no gambler, but I'm willing to put my life on the line and say that he's trying his best at steering this presidency in favor of the Republican clan. So, due to reasons, the vice president was launched into the sky by a rocket and landed into an abandoned building. There, he was attacked by a bunch of men in suits, and he was aided by this new character. So, yeah. Wait, hold on. Garogian terrorist. Could this also be interpreted as Georgia terrorists? If those guys were Georgia terrorists, does that mean that she's... Oh God. Are you Putin? I think this is Putin. Guys. Yeah, I think this is Putin. Oh my God. She's Putin. Or should I call her Putina? Okay, so not that any of this really matters, but just for people who are confused as to what the hell's going on. This alien named Q crash landed into the fictional country of Nippon and killing nearly everyone. In order to fix this, though, Q took a survivor, who was the protagonist, and used his memories to brainwash the world with the false memories that Nippon had totally always been a federal republic, and that their president is a high schooler named Ohama. And the only person who knows the truth is the protagonist. Oh, and President Ohama and President Putina are fighting for the vice president hand in marriage. So, yeah. I feel like I could do that faster. Oh, and this girl is a starship. Okay, now you're caught up, so that's about it. Okay, so now I can talk about the media, because she just brought up the whole broadcasting around the world through a single cable in order to manage information comprehensively and eliminate regional disparities, yada yada yada. Where to start? Oh, okay. So, you know the show, not the show, the movie Rango. It's the one with the CG gecko voiced by Johnny Depp, and he's in the Mojave Desert, and then the gecko finds a town, and the town has a water shortage. Well, long story short, there's this turtle that's the mayor, and it turns out that this turtle has access to all the water and is just holding it all for himself and is taking advantage of the people. Now, one of the lines that the turtle says that really stuck with me was, "He who controls the water controls the world." Now, for the sake of this comparison, let's say that the resources that are in reference to them are in reference to the media. So, water, media. Anyway. Now, if you purchase a media outlet, or if you're completely in control of it, as Putina has just shown us, then you basically just bought the voice of the people. Now, I want to define what media is. Now, the media, specifically news outlets, are not the voice for the people, but rather the voice of the people. Now, as we've discussed in class, news outlets in the United States will always deny being biased towards the political spectrum. But in reality, they are indeed biased. So, if they truly are biased, why lie about it? Well, it's because if you advertise your news organization as an echo chamber, you're just going to be losing resources with regards to views and money and influence. And it will just push away viewers from the opposing political views. So the key to a successful and biased news source in the United States is subtle bias. Now, you are able to address the news to a wider audience, and hey, you may convince a few people onto your side. It's actually pretty creepy how easily the masses can be manipulated this way. Okay, so finally the summit between Nippon, basically Japan / the United States, and Russia. Hopefully I'll find a very in-depth comparison here. Oh, that's just cold.
勝手に沈めないで何よそっちの船がうちの領海に入ってきたのが悪いんでしょ密漁してたみたいだしでもそれともあそこは日本の領土とでも言いたいのかしら日本はサフランシスコ条約でグリル諸島を放棄してるじゃないそれを今さら
San Francisco. There's no way that's not fake. Or there's no way that's fake. One of those two. Hang on, gonna do some research. Okay, back. So this Gural Islands in the Treaty of San Francisco. That's a real thing. Now for a bit of a history lesson. So, ever since 1855, Russia and Japan have been having an ongoing tiffle about who owned the Kuril Islands. Now, in 1951, the Treaty of San Francisco was written. This treaty was pretty much going to be the peace treaty between the Allied powers and Japan from World War II. Now, as you may already know, the U.S. was part of the Allied powers at the time. It should also be noted that the Soviet Union was part of the Allied powers. It should also be noted that at around this time, like around 1951, the Cold War was alive and kicking. So when the United States was given the prime opportunity to screw over the Soviet Union, how could they possibly say no? So anyway, during the talks, the Soviet Union brought up a very big selling point that convinced them to go to war against Japan. In fact, the United States and the Soviet Union had a conference about convincing the Soviet Union to join the Allied powers. And during that conference, the Soviet Union had agreed to join the Allied powers with the promise of regaining control over those coveted Kuril Islands. So, of course, the United States is going to use this to just fuck them over. So, as a big middle finger to the Soviet Union, the United States decided to strongly defend the conditions of the Potsdam Declaration. Now, Potsdam Declaration was a declaration of surrender of the Japanese. What the hell was I gonna say? Along with other conditions, the Potsdam Declaration would guarantee the withdrawal of all Allied powers currently in Japan. Now, with the Potsdam Declaration being pushed heavily by the United States, there was no way that the Kuril Islands would return to the hands of the Soviet Union. And, well, that didn't really sit well with the Soviet Union. So, the United States got its way, and the conditions of the Potsdam Declaration were strongly recognized during the construction and signing of the San Francisco Treaty. Now, because of this, the Soviet Union refused to sign the treaty. Now, at this point, you'd think that this upset would be enough for the United States to be happy with, because, hey, you screwed over the Soviet Union. Nope, because the United States was just getting started. At the end of this whole San Francisco Treaty, after it was signed, Japan, the United States, and 47 other nations signed the treaty. Now, one of the conditions for this treaty was that Japan was to give up the Kuril Islands. Now, that might mean that the Kuril Islands are up for grabs, and hey, Soviet Union's got just a chance to get it. Well, no. No. Since the Soviet Union did not sign the treaty, the nations that did sign the treaty had agreed that no land would be given to any nation that did not sign the treaty. It was a pretty much damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. I mean, this also brings up the question that's coming up to my mind. Why was there a Cold War in the first place? Now, yes, you may argue that it was because communism was the sworn enemy of democracy, and that communism is the complete opposite of democracy. Well, yeah, sure, but they weren't really doing anything against democracy, were they? They were just doing their own little communism thing. We were doing our little democracy thing. Well, I believe that the United States had fallen in love with the concept of being known as the superpower nation of the world. Now, the only major threats to such a title would be from another superpower nation. Now, even if the other superpower nation didn't show signs of aggression towards the United States would continue to sleep with one eye open, paranoid with the possibility of being outed by the other. Now that I think about it, if the protagonist represented the title of superpower nation and marriage was equal to winning said title, that's pretty interesting of a comparison, I think. Anyway, whatever.
でも日露共同宣言の時に2つは返してもいいって。
Oh, this brings up of another thing. So, we ain't done with this story because there's more to this little debate. So, after signing the San Francisco Treaty, the Soviet Union, still bitter about being cheated out of the Kuril Islands, started negotiations with Japan in secret. Now, as it turns out, the Soviet Union was currently in possession of some territories that were not part of the San Fran Treaty, but had been at one point in the hands of Japan. Now, with that as a bartering chip, Japan was about to agree with the territory trade. That was until the United States practically crashed in and aggressively implied that if Japan were to go along with the deal, the United States would keep Okinawa. Now, the U.S. logic was that by having Japan forfeit the Kuril Islands, Japan also had given up the rights of deciding who got to take the islands. So that was pretty much the cherry on top for the United States. And I don't know about you, but that's pretty hypocritical of the United States. I mean, look, they were threatening to break the Potsdam Declaration, which was previously used to screw over the Soviet Union. So that's pretty petty, if you ask me. Just saying.
日本が変に欲を出さなければそうなっていたでしょうね。
Okay.
だって2つ以上要求しないなら沖縄を返さないってアメリカが言うんだもん。
Okay. Well, that speaks for itself.
知ったことではないわね。我が偉大なるルシアを欺いた罪だと思って現状を受け入れるのね。
Okay, well, I can't wait to see how more in-depth these comparisons can get.
彼氏ってそんな純子とは別に
And with President Ohama talking about the vice president being her boyfriend, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the comparisons are pretty much over. Well, I think that's about pretty decent amount of time talking about actual politics with regards to Soviet Union and how the United States really didn't like the Soviet Union and just a bit about the media and a little bit about the vice president and stuff. So other than that, I think have a good day, guys, and look forward to hearing all of you guys' presentations, because honestly, they are probably not as embarrassing as this one. So feel good about that, because I just made a fool of myself. Well, see you later.